All right, well, first of all, thank you so much for the interview. I was asking you
I
about...
like that on your tie, by the way.
You've seen Breaking Bad?
Yep. Love it.
Best show ever, yes.
You know, I think there's so much hype around Breaking Bad now
Yeah.
that I've sent some people to go and watch it and they're like, I don't know, it's not as good as I thought it would be. I think you needed to be part of like the movement. Do you know what I mean, when it was happening?
I
Anyway,
agree. I just saw Cranston yesterday. I was like,
oh my God.
I know.
Is he nice?
Yeah, coolest guy ever.
I saw him at an event like 2 weeks ago and I didn't get to talk to him, but I was so excited.
You should just call him up. Come on.
But
I was in the
he's-
Lovely Bones. Come on, you can go.
No. But he's so great.
One thing I love about this movie was the character of Tony and how forward he was about wanting to be with you.
Scary.
And like, yeah, but interestingly enough, today in like today's terms, it's all about games and like the relationships we play. Like, what do you think about that period of love versus now in the sense of how guys, it's a wholly different relationship style now. Do you like that version versus the way we are today?
I don't know. I mean, I think if someone was that forward as Tony was with me, I would freak out. I'd be like, whoa there, soldier. But yeah, I do like that there was like there were steps to relationships back then, you know. People courted and they, you know, and even just the physical kind of restrictions as well that were part of society back then. Even when they hold hands for the first time or when they kind of like touch each other's shoulders, it's like exhilarating, you know. So yeah, I think it's lovely. I like how innocent it is, but at the same time, you know, he's very forward and he adores her straight away, and what I like is that she's not a sucker for that. She's like, she wants to take a step back and kind of make sure this is definitely what she wants. She knows that she loves him, but I don't think she's quite ready for the marriage thing yet, which I think is good, you know.
All right, so I want to ask you about accents because
Yeah.
I was just talking to Domhnall Gleeson about this, which is so fascinating to me. That his accent in the film is different from his real Irish accent, and it's similar for you. Can you tell me like why they're different and how, and like what each one sounds like?
Yeah, well, Domhnall and I both have Dublin accents. I was born in New York and kind of always had a sort of weird neutral accent. I grew up in the country, never had a country accent, but I know what that sounds like because I grew up 20 minutes away from Enniscorthy. So, yeah, I mean, it's where she was from. We wanted to make sure that they had a neutral accent, but it was kind of softer. So the country accent that we did, it's sort of just a little bit lighter like that and sort of a little bit more melodic and, you know, it's just a like slight variation on ours, but the Dublin accent is harsher, you know. And I think it was important that they had a sound like that showed sort of how lovely and kind of well-rounded it was where they came from, you know.
Is it harder to change different Irish accent or go to the American accent, like in Lovely Bones?
It's harder to do different Irish accents.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, can I ask why? Is it just because it's so similar sounding, I guess?
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. I mean, because I guess I'm exposed to American accents so much as well.
Yeah.
That I had a really, really good dialect coach. The first dialect coach I had, Jill, just like really drilled it in there for me. So that's never really left me, you know. Whereas with some of the Irish accents, I mean, you go up north and it's a completely different accent. They sort of talk like that, you know.
Yeah.
And it's sort of more like a Scottish accent, and you know, so yeah, it's very subtle.
You're playing in a movie where you're falling in love technically with two different people, like kind of. And I wanted to ask you, like, in when you're acting, how is it impossible not to develop feelings for somebody when you're falling in love with them as an actor? Like, I've always wondered how that works in movies when you're falling in love with somebody. How do you not like develop your own personal feelings? How does that work?
I guess, I don't know. I mean, when you've worked for a long time, you know what it is. You know that you're you know the difference between the emotions that you experience on screen and real life, and I think you can manage it a lot better when you've had experience doing it, and you can separate the two. And also, it's a job. I mean, with me and the guys, you know, it was work, and I've known Domhnall for years. You know, we were supposed to do like 2 other films together that didn't work out, and so I've known him for a good while, and he was just kind of like a pal, you know.
Right.
So I think when you trust somebody like that, you're able to go to that place and then come out of it again.
And just not,
you know?
it doesn't affect
you just can't get sucked into it, and a lot of people do, and I can see how it happens, like, but you need to separate the two, definitely.
Well, it's always an honor to talk to you. Thanks for geeking out about Breaking Bad with me.
That's all right.
It's really the best show of all time.
It's the best show of all time.
I don't think anything.
Bryan Cranston.
When you work in a film like this, obviously you develop a close connection with the actors that you're working with, and I always wanted to know this: when you're falling in love with someone in a movie as you're acting, like, how do you not actually develop feelings for somebody?
It depends on the movie. I think. Well, everybody's got lives outside of it. So, I mean, if you went from movie to movie falling in love, I mean, some actors do that. But if you went, you would just not exist in the real world. You would be a mess, unless you make one movie for your entire life. So, yeah, it's important. But it's also, if you hate somebody in a film, it's the same thing. You can't go out later and still hate them because your life wouldn't be sustainable. So yeah, you get better at knowing the difference between the two, I think. Yeah, it's complicated.
Now I want to ask you about working in bigger budget environments versus smaller budget environments. Like, and obviously you've been on big sets like Star Wars, and then you have like a set like this, which is very natural. You're obviously. So I want to ask you about the big budget versus a smaller budget. Is approaching the character the exact same way? Does it feel different on set? Is there more time?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more waiting around on the bigger budget stuff, which can be both good and bad because it gives you time to think about it, and then it can give you too much time to think about it. With a film like Brooklyn, once you've done your rehearsal, when you turn up, it's really about connecting quickly and pushing each other around as actors to make sure you're kind of remaining involved. It can be slightly different on the bigger films, just because sometimes it's more just about the grandeur of it or whatever. But the point should be the same, which is to engage and try and be truthful and interesting at the same time. So it should be the same, but they are quite different.
When you do one day of work on Brooklyn and then you do one day of work on Star Wars, how much do you get done of those films in that day?
You get a lot more of Brooklyn done in a day than you do of Star Wars. I think that's no secret. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah, because I mean, well, the films will be about the same length, I would imagine. Right. But it takes, however, 6 months to shoot Star Wars and 7 weeks to shoot Brooklyn. So yeah.
I was actually just asking about the accent. I'm actually curious about that, about how you stretch the accent a little bit more to give it a more Brooklyn feel. Can you talk about like the difference for you, like from Manhattan to Brooklyn?
Yeah, it was really more the difference between Emory as the 23, now I'm 25-year-old guy from Emory when he was like 13, 14. Actually, when I was in school out in Queens, I had a very pronounced New York accent, more so than I even have now. And it was just turning that up, and New York is New York. Like, people try to make it, like, I know people who try to make that, the Bronx accent's different than the Queens accent. No, it's not different. It's New York. That's what it is. If you're from there, you're from there, and right. You know that,
Now, one thing I found fascinating about the movie is how forward your character is. And, like, you think about, like, today's times and today, like, you don't really see people, like, go that forward, like, because, like, that was an earlier time period. I want to ask you about, like, that and, like, that element of love then and now, and what, like, do you prefer, like, would you prefer if people were more forward like you were in the movie to now?
Yeah, I would. And it's also because now it's a
game now.
Well, now it's just as forward, but in this backhanded kind of way, where you're tweeting on somebody's picture and being like, "You look hot," instead of just talking to a person.
Right.
You know what I mean? And or going on the eHarmony and all that instead of just meeting somebody. Back in those times, it wasn't announced. You didn't announce. You walked a girl down the street. You walked a girl home. It wasn't like now you post a comment
or relationship status on Facebook. Yeah.
But just think about that. Just think about it in terms of the actual words. You're posting a comment.
Right.
That's not romantic at all. That's very sort of clinically indifferent, to be quite honest.
I agree, dude. I agree with you, man.
Yeah.
You imagine these characters on Facebook, like Emory, like your character on Facebook, it would be incredible.
They'd be terrible. Like he's taking pictures with Frankie and the pasta and all that.
He's like taking a selfie with her. Like that'd be weird to see that. When you walk into a period piece, like a time period like this, which is obviously decades earlier than we are now, as a camera cuts and you kind of go back to your trailer or wherever you go and you pick up a cell phone, is it weird? Like jump in?
I don't do any of that.
No.
I don't pick up no cell phone.
When you're acting?
I'm working. I'm working.
So you're totally like method.
No, I mean, it's not method. It's just being I feel it's being a proper professional to not be involved with, to be focused. I don't go back to my trailer when I'm in fact, most of the time, what I get more grief about is that if I'm dressed and ready, I'll tell my base camp PA I'm going to set to just sit and be with the crew and be with my people, because I don't like sitting in a trailer. I don't like the divide between actors and crew members. And Elliot Kazan talks about this, that he would go back to his trailer, but there was one day that they were setting up a shot and it was like raining or pouring, and he just decided to stand out there with his crew, and he realized there was a difference, that they started working for him more. And I believe in that, and I think it's important to be there for your crew members. You know, I remember doing an overnight, and I was tired, and I was all whatever, and then I'm watching these guys move these lights around, these heavy things, and like this stuff, and these sandbags, and I was like, I never want to do that. I never want to do that. And so I don't go back to my trailer. I like to be there. I believe that it's a team when you're making a film, and I like to be a part of that team.